All right. This is really exciting. It's going to be, this is super cool. We get a lot of foozers on here, and we get like historical foozer icons. But this is a different kind of show because we're going to introduce somebody who is simultaneously new and not new at all. And we'll get into the storied history of this gentleman, Trey Stites, and his background with foosball that goes back 2 generations. That's very cool. I want to start off this, though, by talking about something that entered my brain as we were preparing for this show. And so, for those of you that know me professionally, I work with ophthalmologists in the operating room. And these are microsurgeons. And with microsurgery, it's a special kind of fixation and obsession to do surgery, microsurgery, because you get a 2 millimeter incision, and you're doing it under microscopy. You're looking at a microscope, and you're managing the anatomy of the eye. And so part of my job is to be a change agent. I introduce new technology to them, and oftentimes with new technology or new techniques. And when you're a microsurgeon, you've done something the same way thousands and thousands of times, you get comfortable with it, and you get pretty habitual, and you can be really resistant to change. And it's part of my job to support that evolution. And there are arguments why sometimes you shouldn't change, frankly, because some ophthalmologists have done things a certain way for so long, so many thousands of times, that there's a diminishing return on change. That's got to be understood in the net difference of how you do things differently. But oftentimes, if there's a reason to evolve and to do things better and improve, then that change is a necessity. It's part of the craft. It's part of developing the surgeon and their skill set. It's part of improving. Well, you know what foozers have and ophthalmologists have in common? I'm a foozer, right? You know what it takes to perfect the 5-bar pass? You know what it takes, how many hours and how much attention to detail you have to get the ball in the right spot to do a perfect brush pass. How many thousands of repetitions did it take for Dave Gummison to get his hesitation wall pass accurate? I mean, we're talking about repetition and attention to detail, and I think ophthalmologists and foozers have a ton in common. That obsessiveness with the detail, the minutia. And guess what else they have in common? Ophthalmologists and foozers both have challenges with change. Frankly, it can take a lot for a foozer, in my humble opinion, in my experience, and 4 decades around foozers. It can take a lot for them to embrace new ideas and filter these experiences differently. Well, we got a great guest today, and all this is relevant because Mr. Trey Stites. I mentioned this on in social media. Trey is going to be at the tip of the spear for Tornado for a long time, and he's an incredible personality. I've had the great opportunity to spend some time with him socially, interpersonally, and I know him and respect him professionally in other dialogues. I want to spare no more time and bring Trey in. Let's say hi to Trey Stites here. Trey,
Hey, Mark, how's it going, man? Super
good man.
excited to be on. Big fan of your work, big fan of Inside Foods. So, it's great to be here.
Dude, like there are tons of people who are going to see you for the first time. They didn't know what to expect. You know, but I think you're a stand-in. You're so good looking, dude. I'm married. I have kids. You're this photogenic stud. Like, all right, cool, man. But people don't know. They don't know you at all. We're gonna get to know you in a second. But first of all, what's your relation to Tornado? Before we get into some like personal questions, what's your capacity within Tornado or in Valley-Dynamo for that matter?
Yeah, sure. So, I've actually been with the business full time for about 4 years now. I initially came on like right in the middle of COVID, so we barely had any employees in house at the time. It was kind of a chaotic time. Before that, I was financial advisor, did some accounting stuff. But I'm the third generation to be involved in this business and all this type of stuff. My grandfather, he started Dynamo back in '77. He actually started that by making a foosball table, the first Dynamo foosball table in his garage.
Is this
So
gentleman? Are we looking at this gentleman right now? Is that who we're looking at, or did I skip
this
part of the history?
man in the top left,
Yeah. What's the
yeah,
name? Say the name.
Bill Rickett.
And that's your
Yep.
grandfather.
Yep, that is. So he loves telling stories. So actually, what's interesting is kind of how he got first on the map with this dynamo table, which at least the way that he tells the story is he actually saw a college student working on a tornado table in Dallas in the '70s. So he bought the kid a beer, basically talked to him, asked what he was doing, kind of found out how the whole operator system was working back then for Tornado. And what was interesting is at the time you couldn't purchase a Tornado table. You could only lease it out and put it on location, and then you would split the revenue from that between you, the bar, and Tornado, the actual company. So kind of
Mm.
how he made his mark is he made the dynamo table, out of his garage, like I mentioned, but you could actually purchase the table to own. So that was a little
See.
different. And, I'm sure that some people listening can attest. They will probably say that the tornado table was still better, which I'm fine with today.
Yeah.
That was the real difference, I think, that he made, that you could actually purchase the table, which seems kind of crazy now.
We're gonna take a little second. I want to understand this. It sounds like it was an operator leasing program or something because there was shared revenue between, I guess, a proprietor of business and Tornado was taking. But dude, we're talking about
Exactly.
all cash, right? So how were like people were
Yep.
like, oh my
All
gosh,
coins. So,
yeah.
but Tornado actually owned every table out there in the market. So operators couldn't own them. Maybe that's why it was mostly college kids doing it. I don't know.
What's crazy about that is we have problems with collections now in a digital age where you could get someone's debit card and direct deposit. I just think that it just seems like it's fraught with risk, dude, because we're counting quarters, right? Well, we're gonna split quarters three ways evenly, and I'm gonna what? You're gonna have you got like a bruiser that goes around collecting quarters. Is that is
I
that
mean, essentially, yeah. And the legend is, we do a lot of other coin operated products too throughout the history of our company. A lot of like pool tables, air hockeys, and whatnot. And the legend is that the mafia historically has been involved in that business quite a bit. I
dude?
guess due to the cash nature of the business, let your imagination run wild, I guess.
Dude, can you imagine the laundering? Like you have all this like whatever, man. You got some extortion money, and you got to like turn it into quarters and just like pump it through the coin op in the. Hey, it was like a quarter.
Yeah.
It was like a quarter or 50 cents. I mean, what? It had to be like a quarter, right?
I honestly don't know, but I kind of like to picture, like some tough guys going around to collect all the money, going to the bartender like, hey, you're short.
Yeah.
What the hell happened, man?
Dude. It's supposed to be $300. It's only 80,
Yeah.
right? Because
Expect you to believe that?
inflation too, right? We're talking
Oh
about
yeah.
these small dollar amounts. That is wild, man. And so when your grandfather Bill, he converts the business model into table sales. I mean, that sounds like immediately that sounds like a higher stress situation, right? Who knows what margins are, but does he have a production crew? What does that look like, dude?
So he actually, when he first started, it was just him, and he made a handful of tables, just selling them out to guys here and there. And I think what really helped him out there at the beginning is you mentioned guys going around and having to collect the money. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of these operators got pretty big, and they may own millions of dollars worth of equipment. They control certain territories. And so I think for them, maybe the idea of the manufacturer owning the table wasn't as attractive. So he started to catch the eye of some of those guys. And then I don't think it wasn't until he got his first order of like 50, maybe 100 tables that he actually got the financing to open up an actual location and start producing these in bulk, which was in Richland Hills, Texas. That location is actually right across the street from where we are today.
Wow, man. All right,
Yeah,
so
next time you're in town, we'll have to bring you over for a tour.
dude,
That goes
thousand
out to
percent.
anybody listening too.
Dude, I love that.
Yes,
All
no
right,
pictures.
okay. Now let's reframe now. All right, so because it for me it's 1989, and now I'm in so Tornado is starting to supplant Dynamo. The whole thing happens in Dynamo, but there's a whole history here. So now, like Dynamo becomes a national table. But people are competing on it all across the country, and they're having tournaments on it, like big, gigantic tournaments. It's the intermediary between tournament soccer and Tornado coming into form. But so, how does your grandfather building these tables one at a time with maybe your grandmother and some poor grandkids are not getting paid, child labor at its finest? They're all building these tables, and then he gets a location, he gets a little bit of money. What do you know the history? What happens to that becomes an expansive kind of like this tables goes everywhere? I mean, what happens?
I think originally they made a lot of progress just on the model of selling those tables in bulk. And his strength has always been that he's just an incredibly smart businessman. And he knew and worked with like guys like Ed McLeod quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if it was almost like an advantage to kind of have that cunning business mind,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah,
just
yeah,
think about the best way to get them out there.
yeah. I love it. And
Past that,
okay,
I don't know. I don't really know about his advantages and stuff, but I will say probably one of them has been, the long-standing popularity of foosball in Texas.
yeah. So now Dynamo's out there. Now, at some point, Dynamo and Tornado come into direct competition. Some people know this history really well. I think I knew it at some point too. Are you familiar with what happens next? So I would love to know how your grandfather ends up moving out of Dynamo. Is that pretty well known? How does that happen?
Well, so how Tornado came part of the picture. So Valley was actually the biggest probably competitor of Dynamo in maybe the late 80s. And at the time, Valley purchased Tornado, and I'm assuming they moved him to Michigan at that point. And then I think things weren't going so well for the whole company, and so they ended up actually merging with Dynamo,
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
Bill, my grandfather, being in charge of the whole operation. So that's when he got to know like Ed and some of those other guys that came down to Texas as part of that merger.
Dude, you sent me some assets. I got to pull something up here.
Oh yeah.
I want to close. I didn't say asses. I said assets, just in case you were wondering. Let me shut this down real quick. I mean, right there, man. 85. Where's your grandfather in the mix of this? Is he like in the mix of it? What's happening right now in 85?
Yeah, he's running the whole show, and by this point they'd branched out to do a lot of other products, air hockey, pool tables. They were doing a ton of manufacturing. I think probably all of it stateside for Sega for their arcade games and stuff. So they do all the cabinetry and then distribute the games out from there. So I wonder, $40,000 in 85, that's quite a bit, isn't it? I wonder what the inflation adjusted
Yeah.
number is, right?
If we ask Siri, she'll tell us it's probably like
Yeah.
it's probably more like 100 or more in today's dollars. I remember
That's
we
pretty
did that.
big.
There was like a Porsche was like $3,000, and then there's like
Yeah.
50 grand. It's wild, man. And there's absolute. So you got to be business savvy wherever the dollars were coming from, whether it was like venture capital or investors or just like the successive margins and expanding. So now he's into video game cabinetry, man. That is being a monster market. I mean, in
Oh
Sega,
yeah.
right?
And it's that type of stuff even today is really easy for our company to do. A lot of those machines, big CNC machines taking up, 100 square feet or so, allows us to do all that super easily in-house. We've got a 160,000 or so square foot facility. So, with a full mill, and actually those machines are the same ones that Bill bought, 30, 40 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, still
Wow,
working.
man. Dude, those pay for themselves a little
No
bit,
kidding.
right?
No kidding. Yeah. We're very proud of them.
All right, we got to rewind a little bit because we go from your grandfather, building dyno tables into now we got this expansive operation, game cabinetry, and all kinds of stuff. You mentioned other product lines already. So you got a portfolio building, and then there's a disassociation for a little while, right? I mean, there's a transition period, right? So what happens in the intermediary there?
Yes. So actually, in I think it was 2003, Bill, he retired. He got out of the game. He sold, the whole company after the
Mhm.
merger and everything. Valley-Dynamo Tornado. He sold that to Brunswick,
Mhm.
the
I
you
remember.
know
Yeah.
Brunswick, the billion-dollar company that is, I think, primarily making marine engines right now. And what they did is they moved everything down to Reynosa, Mexico, to do all their manufacturing there. Kept some staff up here in Texas, and things. I think it was a little bit difficult for them to manage. When you have a company that big, it's hard to pay attention to like a small part of the
Mhm.
business like that, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Things didn't go very well, and then in 2009,
Well, things didn't go very well for Valley-Dynamo. Or the what?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
Valley-Dynamo, I think it was just hard to manage the manufacturing, having their
Mhm.
staff in Texas, the manufacturing done in Mexico. You could see how things might get out of control. I don't know all the details. I
Yeah.
was, maybe 10 around then. So, but
4.
anyway, the reason I'm saying that is
Yeah.
because thankfully for us, it gave my dad, Kelly, who I think you've had on here before,
Mhm.
the opportunity to purchase everything back in 2009. So then
Yeah.
that's when he moved the whole company, shut down everything in Mexico, moved it
Yeah.
back to Richland Hills, Texas, and we've been there since.
I got to ask a question, man, because
Yeah.
I spoke in the beginning about being connected and professionally. I don't do foosball podcasts professionally, but so a lot of like almost every purchase is emotional.
Oh
Almost
yeah.
every purchase is emotional.
What do they say? You buy on emotion and justify with logic.
100%. Like, in people like to invert that, and especially people that aren't in sales or marketing, they like to imagine there's more rationale than there is. On the surface, not that Kelly didn't do all kinds of analytics and didn't look at cost benefit analysis and didn't look at, hey, you know, we got margins here and we can do this. But I mean, tell me a little bit. Was there a lot of kind of nostalgia? Or was it kind of like I know shuffleboard was kind of, tell me a little bit about that transaction and why and
Yeah.
how.
Well, I'll say that first of all, Bill was in his ear every day saying, you know, Kelly, you got to do this. You got to do this. You know, bring it back.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity. And so maybe he just did it to kind of shut him up. I don't know. But
Yeah.
what I will say about Kelly is that, you know, he is amazing at recognizing opportunity and
Yeah.
capitalizing on it. You know,
Yeah.
he's got a lot of confidence for good reason, and you know, he knows when there's a good opportunity, and I think he ultimately saw that, and you know, it's paid off. Certainly for me, you know, who knows what I would be doing now? I'd be in a cubicle working in financial services, I guess.
Dude, pulling your hair out, looking out the window every day.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this. So, you know, you look at it. I see there's an opportunity. It's a struggling business, and Kelly sees what it can be, and so decides, yeah, we're going to pull this thing in, and we're going to look at margins, and we're going to manage it this way, and we're going to. Was it? I mean, what can you talk about? What when you pulled it out of Mexico and he brings it back to the United States? Can you talk about the functional things he identified that turned it into more of what it could be or should be? What did Kelly change?
Yeah, sure. So I'll say, you know, one of the first immediate changes that he made was kind of streamlining a lot of manufacturing stuff.
Okay.
And one of the biggest deals that he was able to do was start identifying some really good employees that, you know, really wanted to make a better living and almost create these little like micro companies inside of the company where like foosball is a great example where guys could make like almost a bounty on foosball tables the more that they
Okay,
made.
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
absolutely. So he
Yeah.
did that in a couple of different areas. And, you know, what happens then is you get the right person there and they have an opportunity to make a lot more money for themselves if they
Yeah.
make a lot more money
Yeah.
for the company as well.
Right.
So, you know, we found one of those guys for foosball. We did for shuffleboard, you know, different areas. And like for Tornado, for instance, since then we've had the exact same guy running the team, building all of our tables for 15 years now.
Wow. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, man. Unfortunate or not, I don't think it's unfortunate. It's the way human nature works. If there's whatever the gratification is, if it drives you into productivity, you feed that thing, you know, and whatever it is they did, it clearly worked. And
Yeah.
so, please
You know,
go ahead.
the fact of the matter is, people have to be able to make more money 9 times
Mhm.
out of 10
Sure. Yeah.
to be motivated to do things, you know, and it applies the same for like operators of foosball tables. It's the same for promoters, you know, it's the same for a lot of players too, you know. You got
Yeah.
to be able to make money and you know, I don't expect it to be any other way, honestly.
Yeah, no, I think it's great to it's great to recognize there's a capitalist over at Tornado because that's how growth happens. Um, let's see here. I want to show. Well, first thing I want to do is kind of let's look at the product portfolio. I got something here that I want to kind of browse through, and if you want to speak to this a little bit, let's start from the top here. Now, before we start scrolling down, I asked you a question using the assumptive. I couldn't have been more wrong. And this was, you'll remember this question the other day. Let me accept your cookies. Yeah, you could have my kidney or whatever.
That's
I
Flickr, not Tornado.
there you go. Yeah, there you go. Damn. I asked you, I was under the assumptive that Tornado was a small margin component of your portfolio, and that that's why it was marginalized, even if you want to call it that. And that's not true at all. So why don't you just speak to a little bit about how important Tornado is in the portfolio of your business, if you can.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's really not a small part of our business. It's, in fact, I think it's one of the more important parts.
Hmm.
If nothing else, it's a place that I personally see a ton of opportunity. When I first started, I mentioned it was during COVID, and Tornado was actually one of our best selling brands during that time period. I think a lot of that was because a lot of people were at home and having to find ways to have fun with their kids or their family or their friends at home instead of a bar or some social place. And we've got a couple of really good distributors for Tornado that started
Hmm.
selling our products on Amazon.
Yeah.
So essentially, they're buying truckloads of tables from us, warehousing them, palletizing them all, and getting them ready to ship in 1 to 2 days off
Yeah.
Amazon. And so we really saw just a ton of interest, a ton of growth there. And it compared to a lot of our games, it's really one of the easiest tables to get into somebody's home, or really even into a bar. It fits on a nice, pretty pallet. For the T3000, the assembly is nothing, and it's not nearly as clunky or as expensive as some of our other bigger tables.
That's great, man. I think so. What Foozers is easy to get narrow and myopic, and what I mean by that is Foozers just imagine that the whole market's got to be coin op tables. I mean, because Foozers can be, they could be biased and think that obviously the Foozers are what's feeding the market, but that's not necessarily true, right? There's a pretty significant amount of home model tables that are going. Would you say is the ratio a little bit heavier on the home model side than the coin op side for table sales?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, it is. Yeah.
Yep. That's amazing.
Um,
Go ahead. I'm listening.
which I think that that's not necessarily a good thing. I mean, it's exciting that we've sold a lot of tables into homes, but it's kind of like I mentioned before. To get more tables out there, to get them into bars and stuff, um, people have to be able to make money off the Tornado table. Now,
Yeah.
that's not really for me to decide exactly how that happens. It could be that you put one in a bar or some type of club or something, and you rent it out or you charge by the time. It could be that you're putting coins into it the traditional way. It could be you put a credit card reader on it. I don't know, but ultimately, we can't sit here and expect to grow Tornado and grow foosball if everyone that does it loses money, right?
Yeah. Well, let's get back to that. I want to specifically address that in a second. I think one thing that's relevant though, because it's relevant to the business-minded foozer who cares about the growth of the sport. There's a fallacy that people don't know what foosball is. That they need to be introduced to it. Sure, they might not know that it's competitive or that there's tournaments, but the fallacy is I understand if you guys are putting thousands of home model tables out there in the United States and abroad, primarily probably U.S. People definitely know what foosball is. They may not know what competitive foosball is, but there's foosball in these homes, right? They know they're getting this style man, they're getting this style rod and the basic Tornado. Here we see the Storm, we see some of the older generation, but am I on track here, right? Thousands of people are getting tables, and the competitive tournament foozer doesn't necessarily recognize how successful you are driving visibility to the domestic market. Is that pretty fair?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. And one thing that we are incredibly grateful to all the players for, a ton of these guys, I've gotten to meet a ton of players and other promoters, just people that have been involved. But I can tell that a lot of people out there love our table. They love Tornado. They're incredibly passionate, and it's not hard for the average layman who wants to buy a table, maybe just for their kids and stuff, to figure that out. I think that we've had the best table in the world for many years now. Hopefully, most of your listeners would agree with that.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Um, I think we've got some of the best players too, and I recognize how much we're all helping each other here. Honestly, I think that in the past, probably Tornado could have done a better job at supporting competitive play at, supporting the players, supporting the tournaments. It's definitely my intent to to change that, to kick this thing into overdrive. And, I'd like to see a ton more competitions, more tables and bars, higher demand for the table. Maybe we can get another tournament over here for $45,000 inflation adjusted.
I love that, man. Well, look, we need to dive deeper into that because people are very interested in that. And you said, I want to reel it in a little bit. You said maybe in the past we didn't. You didn't say we because you probably weren't even born yet. Tornado didn't do as much to support the players and/or the market, the branding of the tournaments, or however we want to describe it. Now, I'm a big apologist for business because I understand how business works, right? I mean, frankly, I don't know. It sounds like with Brunswick, they were upside down. This happens a lot too, right? They're upside down and trying to figure out their core business, and then they got this whole foosball shuffleboard or whatever, a foosball thing. They're like, can we just peel this thing off? Kelly sees an opportunity, seizes it. And then, and we're talking about still a short window, right? We're still talking about 3 or 4 years. Now you guys are wrapping your heads around this whole new business. You got margins to deal with. You got personnel, overhead. You got to cut certain expenses in order to be profitable. You got to figure out a new business plan. So all those things are coming to a head. And so there's all kinds of reasons why Tornado, at the, to the disdain of the competitive foozer, Tornado's not at the top of the list of things to take care of and manage. There's like the health and preservation of the business comes first. But it sounds like where you are coming into this fold is like you I think you guys are calibrated, right? And now you're like, okay, now we got this thing that has all this opportunity. I want you to start talking now. It sounds like you're starting to identify the opportunity. Go ahead, just take it away, man. Tell me what's happening now organically that's changing things.
Yeah, definitely. So, my job basically, and my dad is the CEO and the president, of course, but, my job, the way that I view it, we got a lot of really talented people that have been with us. Some people have been with us since way back when my grandfather was running the company. But I basically do everything that exists outside of people's day-to-day jobs. And one of those things is seeing the opportunities, seeing areas that we need to pay more attention to, and really just pouncing on that. And to me, especially after seeing how Tornado was treated through COVID, that led me to start getting to know different players, different people involved, like yourself, and recognize that, we're really sitting on a gold mine here. And I think that what we really need is to get everybody on board, everybody out there, operators, Tornado, the company itself, guys like you, great players, get everybody on board, rowing in the same direction with the same goals. And I know for a fact that we're going to grow foosball. There's really no limit at that point.
It's so rewarding and gratifying to hear. And also because very credible and very believable. And I'll like, maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but when you were talking about, you were in finance, I don't know, a couple of years back, and now it becomes your burden. Really, it's your craft, it's your job, it's your livelihood, and you're married, and you might have a family at some point. So you're like, I gotta do this thing. It's not just lip service. It's like it's my job.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. I don't want to go back to the corporate world, and I have a lot of years before I'm ready to retire.
Right.
I have to figure this out if I want to keep doing this for, until I'm my grandfather's age, so it's gonna be decades. So,
Awesome.
it's really important to me to figure this stuff out. And, the way that I see it, how we do that, at least from Tornado's perspective, is the tables. It sounds silly and stupid, but that's pretty much it. We're the manufacturer of the tables. Our job is to make sure that we stay having the best table in the world and to get it out to as many people who want it as efficiently as possible. And I don't know exactly all the details on how that works,
Hmm.
I have a few different ideas on how we can accomplish that. I know Mary Moore, she's been a great ally to us for years, helping get tables out there for tournaments and stuff. We talk quite a bit. Steve Murray, the same way. He's been getting our tables out, helping promoters to have more and more competitions. And I think that kind of stuff is really how we're going to kind of grassroots grow this. Make it easy on the promoters. If it's Tornado paying for every tournament and we're having to put it on with our own employees, like we did in the past,
Hmm.
I think that's great. That's awesome. But ultimately, we're limited compared to what
Yeah.
people can do in their own cities. Maybe you start with 5 guys running a tournament. My job, as I see it, is basically to support that guy just as much as I'm supporting Steve or Mary.
Sure. Yes. I think you're hitting the nail on the head, man. When there's some great things going around the country, but this is old maxim that you think globally and act locally. And if people have the opportunity to
Mhm.
develop their local scene, uh, not to just use a bunch of euphemisms, but a rising tide raises all ships, right? So like you get these
Mhm.
local people and it starts growing and they have a regional event and then they're going to feed into the bigger events and no one, um, I'm not naive enough to think there's this kumbaya hand holding, like ultra collaborative utopia. However, if people understand the same way Kelly understood that incentivized to build your base here feeds everyone is feeding each other's business, even though it's not direct. It's absolutely real, and just giving people the opportunity to have these events and supporting them, and of course being responsible to the economics of the business at all times, because you can't be in the red to do this. But it absolutely can
Yeah,
be. Access is a big deal. Yeah.
definitely. I think it ties back into, if we're being realistic, people have to be able to make money doing this type of stuff if it's ever going to realistically grow. I know that there's a handful, or maybe more than a handful, of pro players where they're competing for their living. I think that there needs to be opportunity for more players to do that. There needs to be opportunity for promoters to make a living doing this. And when that happens, it's really going to help out everybody. The
Yeah.
more, the better, in my opinion.
100%. Now we're going to get into the IT stuff in a second, but I did want to show something
Sure.
because I want to draw the connection. You talked about grassroots, and we
Yeah.
talked about it's not just lip service. I'm going to play something in the. I'm going to swap view in a second. I mean, I think this is beautiful. You were at this experience. There's Jason Wick, who's a great pro player out of Texas. Talk a little bit about what's going on here, man. What's happening here?
Yeah. Well, first let me say, thank you to Jason so much for helping us out with this. This was at the Boys and Girls Club in Gainesville just this Monday. Jason, actually, he's one of the first guys that I got introduced to where I really learned about just how important, tornado and foosball in general is to so many people. He's an awesome guy. He's super passionate. You can see him in these pictures. He was like a kid in a candy store playing with all these kids here. But really the goal is just to help these kids out. Foosball is really a great community, and it teaches people, competition, sportsmanship, coming together, being respectful. Also, part of it that I think is important is it teaches kids that it feels good to compete and win, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you put a ton of your time into it. But it teaches them how to be respectful when they lose too. And I think especially for a lot of the kids here at the Boys and Girls Club, that's just super meaningful. We tend to take a lot of character things for granted, but not everybody has the opportunity to learn this type of stuff. So we did a great job. It was super fun. I laughed my ass off. They were so funny playing this.
Yeah.
I hope we get a chance to replicate this in more clubs. I've been in touch with Mike Stahl as well,
Hmm.
who is a super, super awesome guy.
Hmm.
Since he took over Foosball Clubs USA, that thing, it's really, really exciting what he's been able to do. And I'm excited to work with him for a very long time. that's going to be another thing of part of our growth plan for foosball is, supporting that program, getting the kids playing, helping everybody out. And I think this is a huge part of it.
Man, you have a lot of things to do at once, but you know what you have that's unique. I mean, Foozers, man, like they're committed and like for nothing, dude. Like I if I put a amount of value on my time, how much time I spend doing so, there's no return, like zero return.
Yeah.
You get, dude, you get all this passionate, all types of diverse, passionate commitment. I don't want to call it labor because it undermines the people that enjoy doing what they're doing. But you got to tap into that, dude. Like Mike Stahl is a great example. Jason Wicks is a great example. These people are involved with foosball because they love. I mean, dude, Jason Wicks is great, but he loves technology, right? So he spent $100,000 in streaming video equipment. Like it's like an obscene amount of money, and I don't he believes for a second he's ever going to get that back. But he does it because he loves driving media and visibility to the sport. So I'm with you. I just want to validate you that tapping into that and doing it respectfully, of course. But people are going to want to do stuff for you. They're going to want to work for foosball to grow foosball, and that's a powerful thing to have.
Absolutely. That's something that I've definitely noticed. And, those guys, you guys deserve a manufacturer that's going to support that passion and, do whatever we can to help y'all out. So that's my commitment.
We're going to get into the ITSF and the Tornado World Series in a second. I wanted to ask you, though, is there anything you could speak to? And if you can't, that's fine. I know there's got to be some discretion. Are there some ideas that are pretty formed on how because you have these different groups, right? You got the competitive foozer, you got the promoter who also acts as a middleman for selling tables, right? The promoter gets the tables and disperses the tables, so you're supporting that group, and then you have the other vertical in there, which is the big distributors. Do you have let's focus right now on the local regional / promoter and the competitor. Are there things, maybe you can't speak to too much detail, are there things moving in the direction of finding ways to elevate that relationship?
Yeah, so I would say, just generally speaking, things that have worked for like our pool tables. Well, for one, there's card readers on the table, right? So,
Right, yeah.
For instance, we were talking about tables, inflation and stuff, going back to the 80s. Well, the coin mech only accepts so much money in it, right? But the price of the table keeps going up for reasons we can't always control.
Right.
But the price per game has not gone up with it. So
Right, yeah.
You're taking more and more money away from these guys that want to buy these tables and run them commercially, whether it be for tournaments or something else. So part of it is figuring out, how we can make it more attractive for people to want to buy these tables and put them into your local bar. And I'm not exactly sure on all the ideas.
Yeah.
I will say that for some of our biggest pool tournaments, there's one up in Wisconsin called Whammo, and we sell 300 pool tables a year to those guys, and they get brand new tables every single year for that tournament because all of them are sold straight to operators after the tournament with a discount, tournament used. But what I'd like to see, if we could ever figure this out, and I think that we can, is being able to have brand new tables at every big time tornado tournament where we can make sure that every single one of them is sold right after.
Yeah. Yep. We'll talk about that offline. I have some ideas. We gotta look at margins as a big thing, right? You gotta look at margins, and we'll talk about it. I was just like, my brain just, dude, I'm neuroatypical, dude. Like I'll just like zone out, and I'll leave you alone on this podcast. We better stay focused, dude. No, that's really, really exciting to hear, and absolutely, there are tons of ideas out there, and to be able to collect those ideas and germinate and like synthesize and try stuff out is going to be a beautiful thing going forward. Let's talk a little bit about the Tornado World Series, man. I mean, this is you're behind this. You've had connections with, of course, you've had regular dialogue with Fareed. My quick take on the Tornado World Series. I've repeated this in social media. It's a big tent, and there's room for all types of tournaments, right? So there's tournaments that are like parties. It's fine. It's this thing. We're still selling foosball tables, right? Tornado's still selling foosball. There are
Yeah.
tournaments. There are tournaments that are smaller local events, and then there are tournaments like the ITSF. And so what we got to stay away from is this kind of like competitive idea that one is at the expense of the other. The ITSF represents an athletic event, and kind of Fareed's primary. So the customer is the competitor, but one of Fareed's equal customers is the people he tries to bring in for a 2 to 3 hour window that are investors in the sport. So it's a different model, right? But I want to. I mean, I've talked a lot. I've been talking nonstop for 4 minutes. I want to hear a little bit about your take about why Tornado's behind this event and what your goals are and hopes are with the ITSF Tornado World Series. Talk to me.
Yeah, so I'll kind of tell you how it happened from our view on the tornado side. Last fall is when we actually made the decision to reaffiliate ourselves with ITSF after I think maybe like a 2-year break for a variety of reasons. Both domestic, international. Our table's pretty popular in a lot of other countries around the world. But basically after we did that, I was contacted about this idea for the first World Series, try some new things, generate some excitement. Really all that I did was contact as many important people as I knew, put them all in touch with each other, and then say, good luck. In terms of all the actual planning of the tournament, I haven't had much to do with that, and for good reason.
And you shouldn't. That's right. You shouldn't really. But keep
there
going.
are a lot of people out there that know a lot more about doing these tournaments than I do. But what I will say is we did make 50 limited edition tables.
Wow.
For the World Series.
Nice.
They're a black brushed aluminum, and then I've got these little commemorative plates that I ordered. It's on like a brass deal. We're gonna nail them to the table. It's gonna have ITSF Tornado logo, first inaugural World Series, the date, and then I've got them numbered 1 through 50.
Dude, that's sick, dude. That's sick.
Yeah.
This is the first time I'm hearing this. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Well, I had to throw in a little advertisement there. So we're gonna have probably most of those for sale through different distributors that everybody listening here I'm sure has purchased stuff from before. I wanted to get those little plates and number them 1 through 50 though, because I understand when we did those gold tables a few years ago, our guys, we only made 50 of them, but our guys didn't use the serial plates in the correct order. And foozers are pretty astute guys. They figured out that the numbers went like over 50 numbers, and they're going, "What the hell? We've been scared."
Dude.
We got these different plates this time. I assure you, there's only 50 tables.
Dude, that is sick, man. When do we get? I need an image so I can tell people about it. Like I have a foosball tornado in there. That's like molasses, bro. I love it, but
cool.
I will, I don't know. Like, I'm willing to do some shit to get number 1. I'm willing to do some stuff to get.
I don't know. That one might be going in my garage here. I don't know,
dude. No, that's killer, man. I love that. That's
so we've got all the tables built already, but I don't have the plates installed yet. So probably what we'll do is just set one up, and then maybe I'll send a picture to you, some other guys.
Yeah.
You're good at all that stuff.
Oh yeah. Send it to me, and then we'll get it out. People will see it, and dude, like people will come to that tournament just to buy the tables, dude. They'll come to buy the table. I mean,
I'm hoping so.
They love it. They love it, man. All right, so you got these 50 tables, and you're connected to Fareed, and you see this as an important vertical to your vision going forward, right? That's what happened now?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there are a couple of good things that are going to come from this. One, there's a lot of people, I think at least, that are working together that probably haven't worked together in a long time. And, that's something I like to see. We talked about that earlier, just part of the vision, kind of putting an engine behind all this passion and energy. getting people to work together, it can only mean good things. And I think too, nobody's really expecting this tournament to completely change the game and, foosball will never be the same and blow it out of the
Hmm.
water. I think it's really just, these guys just want an opportunity to try some different things
Hmm.
and see if people like it. You
Yeah.
know, ultimately it's going to be about the players, right?
Yeah.
So, just try some new things, see what's going on. I'm personally of the belief that people are really, really going to like some of the stuff that these guys are implementing. I've talked to Donald quite a bit about it as well, and he's super excited about a lot of the stuff that they're doing. I've seen him all over your Facebook page.
Right, right. Well, look, going back to this, it's a big tent, dude. There's plenty of room for all these different types of tournaments, and give people a great product and a great experience, and they'll attend your event and they'll buy a foosball table. I think that's a very important real thing. I think people should also understand this. So look, if we're going to be direct, um, I think there might be Texas State's traditionally gotten between 400 and 500 people, maybe even as many as 600 people. And right now, I think we're at the 175 mark, 200 mark of people attend. So it's underperforming in that regard. But I don't think people are underestimating the number of people that are going to show up that didn't pre-register. They're going to show up with their cash and they're going to be like, I want to try this thing out. They're going to do it. All that being said, let's imagine there's a disproportionate number of people that show up to this tournament that would typically show up to Texas State. I mean, we both know Reed's committed, right? He's coming back next year, and
Oh
ITSF
yeah.
really wants to deliver a first experience. If two people show up, it's going to be the best damn tournament those two people ever had, and the expectations those
Oh
people are going
yeah.
to tell everyone else. So is that pretty fair? I mean, that you're also your experience with this, where we're
Yeah,
going.
at least my understanding, and like I said, I'm not the most
Yeah,
super involved guy with this tournament, but I think really it's just to try things out and see what works and what doesn't.
yeah,
I know that we started this on pretty short notice, so there wasn't a ton of time to build up excitement and stuff. But I think it's really just an opportunity. Rome wasn't built in a day. Ultimately, I'm committed to a 5-year plan, Kelly and I, to grow the sport, to make things awesome for everybody. So, I think there's plenty of room to try and fail, learn from the players, and do different things. Now, that being said, I do think that this tournament is going to be awesome, and it's
mhm.
going to be really exciting for a lot of people. I'm going personally. Uh,
Wow.
so
Yeah,
yeah, if anybody's out there, I'm sure I'll see you, but I'll be hanging out. I'm gonna try to bring some T-shirts and stuff. So if anybody sees me there, hunt me down and ask me for a T-shirt.
dude, be ready, dude, because these tournaments end at a reasonable hour, which means the bar's open,
So
dude.
I've heard.
You're gonna find karaoke. I
So
threatened you with
I've
karaoke last time. Um,
heard.
but no, and I want to validate something that we've had a conversation about multiple times, and that is that I understand your position, and frankly, you need to sell foosball tables. So you're non-denominational in the sense that, hey, can you sell foosball tables? Yes, I want you to deliver a good product. I want the customer to have a great experience. I want there to be a high level of satisfaction, and you're not going to align yourself with anything stupid that's in terms of like amoral or anything like all those things being said, you're gonna help people sell tables. So like whether it's the ITSF or Mary or the Chapmans or New York or Wisconsin, if these guys have a good product and it makes sense to support what they're doing and they can help sell tables, that's the
Yeah,
goal, right? Yeah.
of course, the goal is to sell more tables.
Hmm.
Naturally, that's the only way I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing this for the rest of
Yeah.
my life, right?
Right. Right. Right.
But I would say, we're committed for a long enough term at this point to just foosball in general that we don't need to immediately sell a new table to every single person out there. We're willing to invest a little bit more now, and I would say at least in the short term, our goal is just to grow the sport of foosball. And if we got to cut into our margin a little bit to do that right now, then that's okay. I don't want to do that, but if we have to,
Dude,
then
why is
we would.
Kelly calling me? Why is Kelly calling
Yeah,
me?
oh no, decline, decline.
Just kidding.
But the most important thing is just to get on the grassroots level, grow foosball, and I know for a fact if we do that, the table sales will come.
Yeah. Well, I love that you're so like if you didn't have a marathon view, if you had a race view, like someone who had a minimalist view that you could be gone tomorrow, that you wouldn't be able to say these kind of things. You said you have a 5-year plan, so we know
Correct.
you're giving yourself a ramp up period, and people are going to love hearing you say. I mean, they might interpret it all different ways, and they shouldn't, because when you say, "Look, we're willing to cut into our margins," you mean to do responsible things that make sense for the business. I mean,
Yes,
you're not going to
I
give away.
don't
You're not
mean
giving
that.
away 100 tables. Yeah.
What I don't mean is that our black limited edition tables are going to be for sale for $100.
Yeah. That's the
I
wrong
mean,
idea.
yeah. What
Right.
I'm saying basically is just that, we're ready to make stronger investments into the long-term growth of foosball than we had in the past.
Yeah.
And, I don't have everything figured out right now. I think the World Series is going to help us out a lot with that. But, we'll find something out, and we are going to grow this game, and every person is going to benefit from it that cares about foosball.
Man, we're right up at the hour mark. We've gone over by 10 minutes. I told you 45 minutes. We've gone over. I really appreciate
That's
you
all right.
spending this much time. But look, man, some of the things that foosers, and dude, I've been playing foosball since 89, dude. Like, yeah, it's a long time, right? Some of the things that we always hope to hear from the people in charge, like you are basically in charge, is that foosball could have more attention to it. Foosball it has not been the focal point in growth or in appreciation for the players or the promoters, and that now someone like yourself is like, look, man, now's the time. I'm committed to this. I have a plan. I'm willing to listen to ideas. It's my job to make the sport grow, and I'm personally and professionally and emotionally tied to this, because this is how I stay out of a cubicle on
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
I would say that you're right on point there. And I'm not the best player. In fact, I'm not really a player at all. Anybody listening to this would certainly beat me, without me even getting close, probably without even getting the ball past the halfway point of the table.
Right.
But I am passionate about it. It means a lot to me. It's my future, it's my past, and my present.
Love it, man. I love it. Now, one last close it out, man. What you said right now is enough to close the show on it. But do you have any other parting shots, man? Anything you want to say? Anything else before we just kind of wrap this up in respect to going over 15
Oh,
minutes?
I think I've pretty much gotten most of it out.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would say is I guess, if you're out there, if you listen to this and you've got ideas, or, you've got something that can work, I'm open-minded to anything. That doesn't mean we're going to pursue everything, but
Yeah.
we need people that are passionate and committed, and I know that we have thousands of those people out there.
Dude, hey man, this is Trey Stites. He's young, impressionable, and we can manipulate him now. No, just kidding. No, just kidding. No, man. You're a brilliant guy. You're a well-studied guy, man. You're a business guy. You're a third generation entrepreneur, in my humble opinion. And I think that great things are going to happen with you at the helm. I'm excited to support you. And not going back to this, I don't look for a return for my, as psychotic as that is. My wife has given me latitude to goof around with one space in my world, and it's foosball. It's the one place I can set money on fire, and I've set a lot of money on fire in the last 4 years. But man, I got your back, dude. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. I got plenty of ideas, and a lot of them are bad, but we get through those, man. We filter through those. We find the good ones, man. So, dude, it's been great to have you on the show. And I'm excited. I'm excited for to see you at the Tornado World Series. That's in 2 weeks, dude, and have a beer with you, man. So thank you.
Me too, man. I'm excited. I'll see you there. And thank you so much for having me on again. I really appreciate it. It's an awesome gig you've got here.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, Trey. We'll see you soon. All right. Well, that was Trey Stites. And if you didn't know him, now you do. He's the grandson of Bill Ricketts, the son of Kelly Stites. He's a super educated entrepreneur, and his job is to push the envelope with Tornado Table Soccer. Valley-Dynamo, but Tornado Table Soccer. And I qualified that. Before I even brought him on the show, I said, hey, I want to talk to you about this. And I was really asking him, where's Tornado fit in your agenda and your sense of initiative? Is it like, am I going to bring you on? You're going to be like, yeah, Tornado's this thing. We kind of care about it. No. Tornado is a great piece of their portfolio, and he's taking the bull by the horns, and he's putting it on his back, in the way he can, not in the way we will in the field and as promoters will, but at least as a owner, proprietor, manufacturer, he's going to push the envelope with Tornado from this point forward. And as foozers, lifelong foozers, us that care about the sport, that have always wanted a manufacturer that cares about growing the sport, Kelly Stites is our guy. So I want to thank all of you for joining me. It's going to be archived on Twitch. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on Inside Foods TV. We're going to make sure everyone sees this thing. Appreciate you joining us, and looking forward to having you on the next episode of Pandemonium.